TCC Inc. RJ KETOVORE now struggling to go full carnivore. It's that last, I was keto for a long time, and when I finally give up that last bit of carbs, that's when the miracles started happening. And it was that the last bit of carbs were not letting my addiction go away. Well, hey everybody, it's Mitch. I want to talk about why, even though the difference between keto, ketovore, and carnivore are a measly few grams of carbs, the outcomes that most of us have experienced are so wildly different, especially in the area of curing those torturous cravings that we have that in most cases actually derail our efforts. You know, I have a live stream every Tuesday night, and one of the things that I've noticed about my live streams is that I really have no direction. I go off on tangents. I go down rabbit holes. In reaction to a comment, I might launch into a 10-minute lecture on something scientific, and I don't even know what I'm going to do. But as I watch these things, and I do rewatch all of my live streams, as I watch them, I marvel. I say, wow, where'd that come from? That was great. And yet, if I try to do that in front of a camera, it just never comes out the same. But it's as though on these live streams, I'm just talking to a group of friends. I'm not trying to perform. So on that subject of keto, ketovore, and carnivore, and why the results are so wildly different, I'm going to replay a section from my live stream the other night where I thought it was a great explanation, and I hope you do understand it, and I hope you enjoy it. So watch this. We'll be back afterwards. TCC Inc. RJ KETOVORE now struggling to go full carnivore. It's that last, I was keto for a long time, and when I finally give up that last bit of carbs, that's when the miracles started happening. And it was that the last bit of carbs were not letting my addiction go away. I was feeding my addiction because even though I thought I was playing by the rules, staying under 20 grams of carbs a day, except for the few days every once in a while that I would binge, because that's invariably what happens when you don't cure the addiction. The cravings will derail you. But I figure, well, I'm allowed 20 grams of carbs a day, so like I've said before, I wouldn't waste those on broccoli, for God's sakes. No, I had to find something with the lowest carb count I could find that was sweet, because that's what I craved. And I settled on blueberries because everybody said how good they were, and I ate mass quantities. I tried to eat only 20 grams of blueberries a day. I succeeded on most days, but it wasn't until I gave up the stupid fruit that I started to get better. And after about 30 days with no fruit, the cravings really reduced, and I haven't touched any since. That was a year and a half ago. So even ketovore with 10 grams of carbs. And one of the things that it does to you, I think, this is my opinion, another one of my wacko theories, one of the things that it does to you is if you're counting carbs, then you're still in the mindset of having carbs. You're focusing on carbs. You're obsessing on which carbs to have, and you're missing the point, which is to get over carbs because you're an addict. You're an addict. And if you're an addict, you have to abstain. That's true of any addiction. That's true of alcoholics. That's true of heroin addicts. You can't allow yourself to have a few grams a day and spend your entire day with your mouth watering, trying to maximize the pleasure you're going to get from that little bit of that drug you're addicted to, because you're just focusing on your addiction when you focus on which carbs you're going to eat. That's what I was doing. And we do these things and we don't realize what we're doing to ourselves. We don't think of it in that light, but we are. So as long as you're eating any carbs, you're never, unless you're not a carb addict. And there aren't a whole or serious, but not a lot of people are not addicted to carbs. We came up as carb addicts from hundreds of thousands of years ago. Like I said, it was the first addiction that the human animal ever had, was sugar. It's an old addiction. It's ingrained in our genetics, most of us. And if you don't find too many people that say, I don't like sweets, but they might like bread or pasta, and that's sugar too. Biologically, we need no sugar. I haven't had a drop of sugar in a year and a half. Somehow everything's still working, and it's working better than it ever did. And I think hanging on to those carbs and trying to figure out how to make recipes, I've said this so many times, to make low-carb versions of the foods that you used to turn to because they had the sugar in it. Well, those foods are associated with eating sugar. It isn't until you give all of that stuff up that you can get over it. Because as long as it's in your head and you keep anticipating it, and when you see that video that's coming out tomorrow, think about what I'm saying right now about what causes somebody to have bad behavior and give way or give in to their addictions. And it has to do with dopamine. But the angle you're going to hear tomorrow is nothing you've ever heard, if you've never heard it before, about how it works, about how it works. And the most important thing is not the dopamine, it's not the addiction, it's the trigger and what happens after you're triggered. And by concentrating all day on making that carnivore pizza and making sure you're using all the ingredients, the low-carb tomato sauce and and however you're going to make your crust and everything, and you still need a skim cheese like mozzarella because you know cheddar is not going to work on a pizza. You're going to end up with 5 or 10 grams of carbs in a couple slices, but it's such a task, and you're looking forward to it, and you're putting so much energy into it. You're already sunk at that point. It probably won't satisfy you as much as real pizza would because it doesn't have the sugar. And you'll find over time, this is what happened to me. I'm just talking about my history. Well, once a week I'm going, maybe maybe once every 2 weeks I'll do this. I would do it with the blueberries, and I would do it with my homemade ice cream. I would take blueberries and I would take heavy whipping cream, and I'd put the frozen blueberries and the heavy whipping cream in one of these little magic bullet blenders and make myself a cup of blueberry ice cream. And it was great. I didn't have to add any sugar, stevia, nothing to it. And all I had in there, I had a lot of fat, but the only carbs were from the berries. The problem was, after I got done eating that little cup of blueberry, I would finish the rest of the 3-pound bag of blueberries because I needed this, my body wanted the sugar, and I gave it a little taste. So thinking that you're going to get away with your subconscious being happy, having not really pizza, but something that might resemble pizza or taste like pizza, and it's expecting sugar, forget it. Your biochemistry is not going to allow that, and you will find yourself now doing that every night or every other night until your diet, you forget you're even on a diet and you say, to hell with it, this isn't working, I'm still gaining weight or whatever. And maybe some people can get away with that with the keto cookies and the keto ice cream and the keto cheesecake and the keto pancakes and all that stuff. But as long as you keep focusing on those foods that you were addicted to because of their sugar content, you're still living in that world, and you don't give yourself a chance to really adapt to the carnivore world where your biology actually becomes fat adapted. And in the keto world, you spend all your time chasing ketones. Am I in ketosis or not in ketosis? I got to stick this finger and stick that finger, and I got to wear a CGM, and I got to... Well, none of that stuff is necessary when you're eating no sugar. There's nothing more you can do. You can't control your biochemistry. I'm sorry, you just can't. Trying to stick yourself and monitor yourself and drink exogenous ketones and do all this other crap so that you can continue to eat 10 grams or 20 grams of carbs a day and feed your addiction, that's counterproductive. More and more people, I think, are realizing that if you really want to live the primal lifestyle, if you really want to live the authentic ancestral diet from 100,000 years ago, it's carnivore. Period. If you want to treat yourself, sometime in the fall when blueberries in season, have a few. Because that's what our ancestors did while they were in season. But they weren't available. They weren't being flown in from Brazil every day or wherever else in the world they happen to be in season. We're not designed. We're not designed to live next door to a 7-Eleven where everything that we might want, the phony food, the processed food, all that stuff which is manufactured and scientifically engineered to feed, to be so addictive you can't stop eating that stuff. We're not designed for that. So I've really gone hard advocate for carnivore, and the only difference between carnivore and ketovore is 10 grams of sugar a day. And I don't care what you call carbohydrates, it all breaks down to glucose, which is sugar. So, I mean, wheat and bread, starches are just long chains of glucose molecules. Complex carbohydrates, but they break down. You have enzymes in your saliva that'll take that long chain of glucose and break it down in an instant. And we're addicted to that stuff. So anybody, and this was all triggered. See, this is what happens to me. I go off on these tangents. That whole rant was triggered by a comment that said I'm struggling on ketovore. And everybody struggles on those things. And they need a lot of hand-holding, and they have to monitor everything. And there's a lot of doctors and YouTube channels that are great people out there, but all they talk about is monitoring whether you're in ketosis or not. You don't have to on carnivore. It's stupid. There's nothing more you can do. Your body's going to do what it wants. If you feed it nothing but meat, it'll be in ketosis when it needs to be. It'll be out of ketosis when it doesn't need to be in ketosis. That's how it's supposed to work. We're supposed to be hybrids. We're supposed to be able to run on 2 different kinds of fuel, like a Prius. We can be electric or we can be gas. We can run on fat if that's what we got, and we can run on sugar if that's what we got. We run better on fat, but we can run on sugar when the fat isn't around. Ask Bart K. You all know who Bart K. is. Ask him what the Randall cycle is and ask him what that does. That's where in each cell, the pathways that create the energy that we live, that drives us, that's where the switch is. That switches the metabolism from burning sugar to burning fat. And it happens all the time. Nobody who's a fat burner is a fat burner 24/7. And we can't regulate that stuff. The only control that we have over that stuff is the food we eat or the drugs we take. And the drugs aren't a great way to try to interfere. Now, if you're a diabetic, it's a different story. You've got something broke, and now you have to take some exogenous or external substances to regulate things. You need to shoot insulin, you need whatever you need to do. But if nothing's broken, you don't have to worry about it. You just have to feed it. You have to feed it correctly. And it turned out, it was the biggest surprise of my life, and the only regret I have is it took me 75 years of living to finally get it right. 75 years. Because when I was 74 years old, I was on keto. And struggling on keto. And even then, 2.5 years ago, I thought carnivore was the most absurd thing I'd ever heard. I used to say, nobody can do that. Nobody. How the hell can somebody live on just meat? And a year and a half later, now I'm saying, why the hell isn't everybody just living on meat? I don't understand how they can eat all that other crap. So never say never. Let me finish my cold coffee here. Give me 1 minute. And now, take the rest of the day off and eat meat.